You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. I am your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 144. Today on the podcast, I have Amazon bestselling author Frank H. Jordan, who writes the Joe Modine thriller series featuring an ex-Special Forces Australian soldier, Josephine Dakota Modine. Frank writes fast-paced, action-packed thrillers, and I like that he sets his books in his home country of Australia. It's always fun for me to learn about new places and learn about the military and special forces of other countries other than the United States, like Frank does for his books with an Australian soldier kicking butt around the globe. So I really enjoyed that part. Enjoyed talking with Frank about that, learning about his background and about his books. So we'll get to that interview here in just a second. But before we get to the interview, please do rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening app, or visit thrillingreads.com/links to find the links to the podcast on all the main sites over there at thrillingreads.com/links, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and the like. You can now also find this podcast on Pandora. I'm excited about that. So if you're listening to this from Pandora, please rate and review the podcast over there to feed the algorithms on all these apps, wherever it is you're listening to it. It's the best way to help other fans of thrillers and mystery books find the show. So I really appreciate that. If you like video, I've also been recording the last few interviews on video as well, including this one with Frank. So if you want to check out our mugs as we chat about thrillers, you can go to thrillingreads.com/video. That'll link you over to my YouTube channel where I've been putting up all these interviews over there as well. So thank you for your support. Much appreciated. All right, here is my interview with Frank Jordan. And he's joining us all the way from Australia. Welcome, Frank.
Oh, thanks, Alan. It's great to be here. And as I was saying before, this platform that you've created is fantastic. It's a real credit to you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. It's really good.
Well, thanks for being on, especially what time is it in Australia right now?
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock. I didn't think it was going to happen because we've got thunderstorms happening outside, and my NBN was telling me that we're going to have outages and all the way up, and I thought, oh, here we go. And this morning I got up and got thunder out there, rain, but hopefully, fingers crossed, the electricity won't go out and we won't get a blank screen.
No, it's happened before. It's happened to me before last year when there were wildfires here in Northern California. So it was happening on my end. So I know how that goes.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your background and about your writing journey?
I've got an ace in the hall. My wife's an author.
Okay.
She writes as Alicia Hope. And she did all the hard yards for me. So for me, getting into the writing was easy. She was the one that got into joining the writers' clubs and getting out there and learning about the whole business of getting self-published for a start. She started off as joining these writers' clubs and learning the craft right back when Create Space was part of Amazon. So she got in there early, and going through the with all the stuff that she did do with the writers clubs, she wasn't getting, she had that sort of mindset, and a lot of the guys in the actual club had the mindset of you had to be traditionally published. We've seen so often that a lot of the people get a bit disheartened sometimes. They don't have that network to be able to go out and self-publish. So it puts them off, and a lot of people that don't get traditionally published tend to just fade into oblivion. Being able to self-publish now in this age that we're living in is a lot easier. I'm so lucky because Alice went through, she did the hard yards, went through with Create Space to get all our books up on the web and formatted in ebook format, which back then it wasn't easy to do. You've got a lot of better tools now. You've got Vellum, which is great. That makes things a whole lot easier. When we got onto Vellum, Alicia just, there was a big sigh, and she thought, oh, this is fantastic. We don't have to worry about all these, where your full stops and commas go and all that sort of stuff. It formats it so nicely for you. So I had this I had Alice go through and do all the hard yards. And with me, my background, it's not as academic as Alice's. I'm more of a sports type oriented person. At school, I excelled more in sport than in the academia side. But with Alice doing all the hard yards of the writing, it was so easy for me to get up and get into the business. And I had Alice writes in rural romance, and I write in the more action adventure genre, as you know. The way it came about really was we were having a cards game over a friend's place. It was Texas Hold'em. So we had a big group of people, and we're all sitting around and shooting the breeze. And they said, well, Alice was talking about her books and the hard yards. And they said, well, why don't you get into into the writing business, Frank? And I thought, well, all the holes in the cheese are lined up. I should be doing it. So we were sort of sitting around, and one of the ladies in the card game sitting at the table wasn't too sure what her first name was, but we always used to call her Modine. And so that's where the Modine name came from. We thought, hey, that's a cool name. And no one ever called her by her first name. It was always, Modine, what are you doing? It's your turn, Modine. And she'd, respond to that, no problems. And I thought, that's a pretty cool name. So, we're talking about, well, what sort of book are you going to write about? And I liked Lee Child, Jack Reacher stuff. I mean, who doesn't? In the action adventure genre. But I thought, well, I don't really want to go up against Jack Reacher, so I'll make my protagonist female, and I'll call her Modine. Because this lady, Modine, she's a real shaker and mover. She's riding motorbike, she's kickboxing, she's driving trucks, she's doing all this adventure stuff. So I got the thumbs up from her to use her name, spelt it differently. But that's how the Modine came about. And at the time, SAS were in the news. We just had Ben Robert Smith, 6'6" and a bit, this huge guy, and built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was in the news. And they're getting a bum rap. I mean, he was the highest decorated soldier in our army, and the media was, I don't know, a bit of tall poppy syndrome, tried to drag him down a bit. And I thought, that's a bit of a bum rap. I said, I think what I'll do is I'll incorporate the SAS in the story, what they do after they leave the SAS. The way it came about was I thought, well, I'll have Ben and Modine and her group because the SAS over here, it's more SASR, which is what they call the British, just the SAS, Australian SAS, the SASR regiment. The way it came about, I thought, well, I'll have a group and they'll be all friends in the SAS, and it's all about their life after they leave the SAS. So Ben goes off and he joins National Security, and he's made team leader in Australia. And so he thinks, well, as a team leader, I need a team, obviously, and what better team to pick than your old mates in the SASR. So he goes and recruits a lot of his old friends, and Modine's one of the last ones. So basically, that's how the Modine series came about. And the first book starts off developing Modine's street cred. So it gives how she leaves the SASR and she gets a job as a security guard, and she's feeling a bit flat because security guard's not as exciting as being in the SAS. So anyway, so she goes through a whole transformation there, and she goes through basic training with this national security force called NatSec, and Ben gives her a few little assignments to do. And at the end of that book, she goes out on one major assignment where she has to prove her credentials, basically. So I've had mixed reviews on the first book. They think, there's a lot happening in there, and it's, but that's the way I set it up. I wanted to develop a street cred, and from there, the next books in the series build on her abilities, and she just goes on a wild ride from there on.
You have 9 books so far now, right? Is that correct? 9 books in the series?
I've got
yeah.
nine books now. I'm working on the 10th one.
Okay.
And yeah, they're getting good reviews, online medias, Amazon, Kobo, Smashwords, even getting really good reviews on Goodreads, which is hard to do sometimes.
Yes.
I've heard that Goodreads can be pretty brutal, but thank God and fingers crossed, I've been pretty lucky with a lot of the reviews. And the other thing too, when I was thinking about writing the books, because Alice did Alicia Hope did all the hard yards, and she started off doing a rural romance, and then she went to a chick lit and did a historical fiction as well. So she had a few different genres that she was jumping in between, which is it's great. And if you've got the inspiration, you're writing them. As far as sales go, I think where I got it probably right and where a lot of people like Lee Child's got it right is to have that series. So if you can get someone hooked on that first book and they like the characters and that, they'll follow that series through. Whereas if you're jumping and changing your genres, they might like this one, someone who likes action adventures, not necessarily going to go and buy a rural romance, obviously, or a chick lit. They're going to stick to their action adventures. So it's been great, and the feedback that I'm getting on the web is really positive, and the people really like the series. Like this next book, book 9, we got a lot of pre-orders. I'm building a fairly good readership, and having all those pre-orders beforehand is a really good testament as to the people out there wanting to get the next book and wait. And a lot of our beta readers, as soon as I gave them book 9, they're always going, oh, hang on, what's going on in book 10? You got to have a book 10. So I sort of left it as a little bit of a teaser on the end of book 9. And it's surprising how much ownership your audience has over your characters. And they're telling me what Modine would be doing next and that sort of thing, which is great.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good journey.
You're connecting with the readers. That's a big fun part of this is connecting with the readers and interacting with them. Yeah, you said, so what is your writing process like? Do you outline your stories before you start to write them, or do you just start to write them? I'm kind of curious about your writing process.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I like to visualize my stories as like if I was watching a movie. I started off and I had the whiteboard, and I still do that. I have a basic idea and I outline it. But as I go along, I follow that basic idea and I think, well, hang on, I've got to get my guys from here to there. And when I'm starting to write, the whiteboard might go off on this direction and I'll go off on the other one. I'm thinking, hang on. Is this what I really wanted to do? And how am I going to get these guys from point A back to point B? And I like to think that I'm keeping it real, plausible, as opposed to a bit of fantasy, like all of a sudden, I think in action adventure, you've got to make it a bit more real to keep your customers, your clients interested. So, they'll let you know if you've gone off on a tangent. So they'll certainly give you a lot of feedback. My stories are more your spy, military thriller, action, a lot of action adventure. So some of the books that I have read, and I didn't read a lot when I was younger. The first book I read was J.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. I mean, everyone's got to read that. It's just fantastic. And The Hobbit. I love Wilbur Smith, the Seventh Scroll, and what was the other one? The River God. They were brilliant. I love those ones of his. Just recently, I've read not Michael Connolly, David Baldacci's Will Roby series.
Oh yeah,
there was only 3 books in that series, and I was sad when he finished writing those. I thought he could have kept on going with them. But I was interested to hear and listen to the podcast the last one you did with James Razone, and my books follow not so much the action on as he does, but no profanity, and no explicit sex scenes or anything like that. And I think the audience do appreciate that. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback in that regard as well. It's brilliant, as I said, what you're doing here allows me as well to have a listen and get in touch with what everyone else is doing. And from what I'm hearing, I'm pretty much following the same field and coming through and having all the obstacles and following the same sort of path as they are. So it's really great and really reassuring.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too that you're doing that your characters are based in the Australian military, which is kind of cool for, it's kind of different for us here in the States, in the US.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to go up against, the Michael Connollys. They've got the Harry Bosch series, and it's great, Hollywood, and they're driving around Hollywood Boulevard and all this. And I thought, well, hang on, Australia's got some nice places. Not to say there's anything wrong with Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, it's great. I'd love to get to America and have a walk around and, Hollywood Walk of Fame and that and see all the sights. It'd be awesome. But Australia has got some really lovely spots too. And I suppose too, that's what drove me with a lot of the places I've been in Australia to highlight those areas. Again, they don't, while Australia features mostly in there, because of their background, every now and then the guys get called back to Afghanistan because as a SAS Special Forces there, they've got a lot of street cred in Afghanistan and they know the area. So every now and then the CIA rings up NatSec and says, hey, we need your help over here. So, yeah, the guys end up going over there, and it's a good journey for them.
Yeah, what's the military? I'm not too familiar with the military structure in Australia. Is it all volunteer or is it mandatory?
No. Well, we've got our reservists as well. When I at school, when I was in primary school, I did a stint in the Air Cadets, which is basically I learned how to stand up straight and march properly in step. From there, when I started off life as an auto electrician when I left high school. Got into mining, and during that time too, I did a stint in the Army Reserve. So that was basically a volunteer, but you get paid for that, which was really good. They pick you up in a Iroquois helicopter, dump you out in the middle of the bush, and say, "Well, find your way home, fellas." So you learn a lot of good life skills, and you learn to work as a team, which is great. And a lot of my sporting career too, I played AFL, which I think you guys call aerial ping pong. I know our guys over here, guys that are into rugby, always call it aerial ping pong. Of course, there's a lot more skill involved in aerial ping pong, as you could imagine. But most of my sports have been in that team environment. Although I have, at an early age too, I did judo, karate, and a lot of self-defense in that regard. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I last when I was looking, when I was reading your bio there on Amazon, that you said you were a weekend warrior, and same here. I was in the Army National Guard here in the States, so for college. So
I think it's good for people to go through that because it does give you a good look at what these guys go through and a good taste of in the media over here at the moment, they're talking about war crimes that happen over there. And to me, they're trying to apply civil law to what happens in a war zone, and you just can't do that.
Yeah, 10, 20 years later.
Yeah, and years later, and sending people, news reporters over there to interview, the Taliban to say, hey guys, did your Australian soldiers do anything bad while they were over here?
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was that was going on over there. So that's too bad. Yeah,
but anyway, hopefully that will sort themselves out for the positive in that regard. So
kind of curious too, with the whole pandemic that we've been going through this past year, the whole world, did that affect your writing at all, or your style or anything? Or
I think it dragged everyone down a bit. it's funny how those sort of things can affect you. I mean, my parents are on the other side of Australia, so with the pandemic, I haven't been able to get over there and visit them. And you're thinking, well, wouldn't it be horrible if you did go over there and you did take the bug with you? And so it's something you really want to go and see them, but it's at the same time you don't want to cause them any dramas. But not only the pandemic, we've had fires and floods. It's just been crazy last couple of years. Yeah, started off late 2000, late 20, and 21 doesn't look like it's going to give up anytime soon.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be at least till next year. We'll hopefully start to get back to normal, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of curious, what do you use to write your books? Do you use like Word or Scrivener or some other software?
Yep, I just use Word. I use a Mac. So I used to, when I was working as an auto electrician, I went into mining, and in the mining field, they started using more computers. Everything, the payload monitoring systems were all computerized. So it was something that I sort of had a knack for. I was the first one to run up and grab the laptop out of the store, plug it in and go for it. And I had went and did a couple of programming courses in BASIC, and then I embarked on a IT degree. So I've got a Bachelor of Information Technology. And a lot of the stuff we were doing was all Mac-based, Intel-based. And it wasn't until I left and got a job as an IT tutor that I got an administration job in a Mac field. And that sort of changed me. I was thinking, the Macs are so much less prone to a lot of the viruses, and just especially for editing and graphics, because I do all the graphics for my books as well. I use Photoshop. So Alice and I are really lucky in the respect that she does all the editing and polishing my books, so I can just get in there and I can do the writing side of it, and I can hand it over to Alice, and she'll put it through auto crit to see, how many ifs and buts and how many times we've mentioned the and then and all those sort of things, and grammatically polish it. We call it the auto cretin. It comes up with a lot of not a lot, but we're getting a lot better now, and I think, looking back at the books, they are really improving. The stories are getting more polished. So as we get going along, it's getting better, but at the same time, it's getting harder to try and keep that standard up and come up with new ideas.
And what's the latest one? Is the Modine Strike Force? That's the latest book that you have
That's
out?
the latest book.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what's that one about?
Basically, they go back to Afghanistan, because one of the British royalty who were assigned to Camp Bastion, they go out on a little sortie in a helicopter, and they get shot down. So the member of the royalty gets taken, and it's all hands on deck. And of course, with the guys having ties with the CIA and being in the SAS and knowing the area where the chopper went down, they're asked to take part in the rescue. So it's a real trek through the deserts of Afghanistan, in the caves, and even Tora Bora. They end up in Tora Bora, following the breadcrumbs, and eventually, I won't say how it comes out. I'll let the readers decide if it's good ending. But a whole lot of issues that are going on there. So yeah, I think it's from all the reports and the reviews that I've had, it's one of the best ones yet. So trying to keep that standard up again, it's going to be hard to do. And with this next one, it's called Modine Salvation, and it has Ben, walking out, Ben, the leader of that team, walking out into the desert, after he's been bombarded with all this war crimes issues and all that sort of stuff, and it's taken a heavy toll on his marriage and his life, and he walks off into the desert. So there's been a lot of questions on the web. What's happening to Ben? Which is great. Yeah, it builds that bit of a buzz for the next book. And
a nice little cliffhanger.
yeah, sort of cliffhanger. Some people like that, and some people don't.
Yeah, that is true. So people, it's a very passionate subject. That's true.
It is that you could. Yeah, the first book, and it's funny. The first book ends on a bit of a cliffhanger after Modin goes through all the basic training and that, and we've found that if we package the first or promote the first box set more, people get more of a fuller read, and it's a more rounded story. So that cliffhanger's answered straight away, obviously, because I've got the first 3 books. And, you know, the first book did really well when we got our first BookBub promo. And hallelujah to BookBub. They're fantastic with they're expensive, but they pay you back in spades for the amount of readership and the amount of especially reviews that you get. It's so hard to get reviews for an indie author on the on the writing platforms, especially Kobo and Smashwords and other places like that. When we do advertise the first book, that went to we had a international BookBub promo, and that went to #1 in England, Canada, not so much India, but Australia. So it went really well. Then to get our next BookBub, we actually to get the full BookBub with including America, we packaged the first 3 books into a box set, and that really went super well. People were, it went to #1 in America, went to #1 in England, went to #1 in Canada, went to #1 in Australia. And of course, with those sort of promos, they're only up there for a couple of days to a week, you know, but that gives you so much exposure, and BookBub have got so many clients that they send it out to. It's great. It's a snowball effect. You get all those good reviews. If you've got a good product, you get all the great reviews, and that makes it so much easier to get the next promotion. And that's the other thing too. If you you had just one book, you know, and you took you 10 years to write it, and you had your one book, yes, it'd go good on BookBub, but unless you got that arsenal, the follow-on, that's where you sort of break even. Well, you don't break even, you break even on the first promo, but that's where the cream is, you know, people going on and buying the next couple of books, because to get a BookBub, you've got to heavily reduce the price of your book or your box set to get that promo, because they want to provide their clientele with the best deal that they can. And it's really worthwhile. And we've found that invaluable.
Yeah. If you only have a couple of books out, it's not going to be worthwhile. Might as well focus on getting more books out to sell before putting that kind of money. Yeah,
it's all fake too, and if you're in the right spot, look at Andy Weir. You know,
that's true.
Writing the book,
you never know.
You're getting it published, you know, and Matt Damon starring in the movie. How fantastic's that? And it was all within 5 years. That's unheard of. You know, all the holes in the cheese line up. And he was self-published. He was throwing it up on the web. He just happened to be in the right spot at the right time. Met the right agent who, you know, was looking for something like that. So there are those fairy tale stories.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, so you got to get yourself out there, and that's what I always tell everyone. You know, and when we were going to those writers' clubs and that, I said, get that mentality of being traditionally published out of your head for now. If you want to write, if you're really passionate about your books, get them out there. Let the people decide. And you'll usually find that the traditional publishing houses will come knocking on your door. And that's what happened to Matthew Riley, basically. He went through self-published, got his books out into a bookstore earlier on the piece when you could get them out into bookstores. Agent saw his book in the shops, picked it up and went from there.
Yeah, or at least do both at the same time. Send out your
Yeah.
query letters, but then put your books out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, do both. I'm happy with the way things are going at the moment. With especially with the series,
Mhm.
getting good sales, good feedback from people that have bought them, and I want to get one out there and keep that momentum going as much as I can. As I said, it's getting a bit harder. You sort of set the standard, so you want to try and keep that standard up, and you want to try and keep it interesting.
Yeah.
So it is getting harder, but some books come easy. And when I'm writing, if I'm in that zone, I try and stay in that zone. I'll be, if I'm on a roll, I'll be sitting in bed typing away on the laptop, and it'll be 12 o'clock. Lunch is gone and past, but in that zone, because that's so hard to get back when you get out of it.
Yeah.
So I tend to, take advantage of moments like that. And if I'm in a bit of a lull, or got a bit of a writer's block, I'll go out and mow the lawn and go and do something like that. And usually something will come to me while I'm working away, and then try and get back into that zone.
As soon as you start mowing the lawn, then you get the ideas. You want to run back to write. Yeah. All right. So, all right, though, Frank, it's been so much fun talking to you. Where can readers find more about you? You have a website, or?
Yeah, I've got a blog. If you just do a search for Frank H. Jordan, Blogspot, after it, it'll come up.
Okay.
I've got a author's page on Amazon. When you look at my books there, all my books are on Kobo, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple iBooks, any online retailer. So, and I'll post on my blog if there's a promotion coming up, so the guys can jump in and get the books at a discounted price. So if a lot of my normal readers will be hanging out looking for those promos.
Great. So the 10th book will be out this year?
Yes, I'm hoping to get that out June. At the end of May, June. So I can, hopefully get started straight away on the next one. Keep the ball rolling.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast, talking about your writing process and your books. I had a lot of fun talking with you.
Oh, look, thank you very much. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. You're doing a great job there, and keep up the good work. It's really great to see. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. If you have a moment, please do check out thrillingreads.com/links, where you'll be able to rate and review this podcast, or simply rate this podcast wherever it is that you're listening to it, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, whichever podcast app you prefer. Please take a moment to rate this podcast. It's the best way to help other fans of mystery and thriller books to find the podcast, and it helps me get the word out, and so it's the best way to support the podcast. So I do appreciate that. And if you're interested, you can join my Thrilling Reads mailing list. You'll find the sign-up form at thrillingreads.com/links. Once you subscribe for free, you'll be notified about discounts and deals on great books in the mystery, thriller, and crime fiction genres. You'll also find my social media links and my author website over at thrillingreads.com/links. So check it out and say hi. All right, take care and stay safe until we meet again on the next episode of Meet the Thriller Author.